of Va-Dor's continuing tradition of educating the voters and allowing them to get a chance to see the candidates and to hear what they have to say, to introduce a candidate for state senate, Tina Polsky. We're very pleased that she's here. We appreciate her time. This is extremely busy right now for candidates, and to make time to be here with us to talk to the voters, we appreciate. A lot of people are listening to TV ads, but to be able to talk to the candidates, ask them questions, is a vital part of our democracy. This was originally going to be a debate. We had asked Slosberg to be here with Tina Polsky. Slosberg agreed. And then yesterday I was informed that, actually earlier this morning, I think, that he had conflicts and would only be able to be with us instead of the scheduled 5 to 6 from 5:15 until 5:45. About 18 minutes ago, I found out that Irv sent me a text saying that unfortunately his dog is ailing and therefore he had to take the dog to the vet. Maybe his opponent might want to vet that excuse and find out how accurate it is. But for now, I will just simply say this as someone who represents dogs and cats and animals, and as an animal rights attorney, I will say a mishaberach for Irv's pet. All right, I don't know the name, but it'll still work, and I'll just say Hamishaberach Avotenu, the one who blessed our forefathers and forefathers. May he also bless Irv's pet with a refuah shlema, and may he also grant Irv the courage to come and join with us in rescheduling this debate so that we can actually hear the two candidates together. However, in light of that, I'm still thrilled to have Tina Polsky here. It's a great honor to have you with us. Tina, I'm going to give you a few minutes just to share some thoughts. Tell us about the campaign, how you're doing, why you wanted to run for office, and then we'll ask you some questions and we'll give you time to wrap up. Tina, it's all yours.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. So I am the current state representative for District 81, which covers the western parts of Southwest Palm Beach. It goes from Boca to Lake Worth, west of the Turnpike, and the 3 cities in the Glades, Belglade, South Bay, and Pahokee. I have been in this seat for 2 years. It was my first foray into politics. I, like many people, was very upset at what happened in 2016. And all I had done prior to that was volunteer on the last couple of presidential campaigns, knocking on doors. And the opportunity came up for open state representative seats. And some people I knew said, you might be great for this. And so I jumped in, mostly, as I said, because I was just so frustrated with what was going on in politics and, obviously Trump, et cetera. But, after years and years of the federal government, really not going in the direction that I like, I think what really prompted me, and it's kind of ironic on the timing, is gun safety. I have 2 teenagers, and it was really upsetting me. And it was, several years since the Sandy Hook incident. And I'm sure many of you have thought or heard where, like, if the federal government wasn't going to do anything after these babies got murdered in their classroom, then, when are they ever going to do it? And so, I decided to get in and had a successful run. I had an open primary and became the state representative. I have really enjoyed my service in this time, and it's been a great combination of working in Tallahassee for our democratic values and working with constituents here in the district. Obviously, COVID-19 has really changed everything that we've done as representatives. We finished up our session in Tallahassee, kind of ironically, on March 13th, the day of, that was the last day of session. That was the day that the president declared the state of emergency. And came back and have really just been dealing with COVID nonstop, and really working with our constituents and helping them, guide them through the process. The unemployment debacle, so many people couldn't get on the system, and we're having so much trouble. And so our office kind of turned into a DEO, Department of Economic Opportunity, which is the agency that runs the unemployment system. You may have heard what was discovered through this process of people trying to get their benefits is that the system, as designed, was designed to fail. It was a $77 million investment by Rick Scott, and it never worked well, even without the million people applying and crushing it all at once. And it was designed to keep the unemployment numbers low. Well, multiply a normal situation by the number of people who were trying to get on, and it was a disaster. But our state was worse than almost every state. And I think in April, we were the last state, the lowest number of benefits given out. And it's really been spectacularly bad. But we've managed to work our way through quite a bit and help as many constituents as we can, but hundreds have written to us and asked for help. It's really been a terrible situation. So that, the problems with testing, not having testing in our area for a long time, finally getting it. Of course, we're dealing now with, there's availability of testing, but the results take too long to get back. There's a lot of problems that we're dealing with. So I foresee this state senator having to deal with a very unusual kind of session in Tallahassee in 2021. The session meets in March of 2021. We would start going up in the winter prior to session, but it's a ways away. So there's a lot that will happen with the pandemic in the meantime. And so this state senator, and I think the reason that I am the right pick for this seat is because I'm so involved in everything right now, and I'll be ready to go on day one to represent the Senate district. The Senate district is number 29. It covers all of Boca, Highland Beach, Wellington, West Delray, a little bit of Boynton, West Lake Worth, and Coconut Creek, Parkland, and a little bit of Coral Springs. And one thing I mentioned before, I don't think I finished this thought about the ironic timing of when I ran for state rep. It was January 2018. So we all know what happened February 2018. So here I was, entering my first campaign ever to become an elected official and running on a platform of, trying to promote gun safety, and then Parkland happened. And so I was able to, join a great group, Moms Demand Action, when their founding meeting, I think in March or April of that year, probably April. And they've been incredible advocates for gun safety. And I've been really happy to work with them. I proposed legislation for, excuse me, safer storage of guns over the last 2 years that I've been in office, among other, I think, very important democratic values. I've been able to pass a few bills, been able to get some great appropriations back to my community, mostly the Glades, which is the area, Belglade, South Bay, Pahokee, which is underprivileged, economically, difficult situation, underemployed, and they really could use some help. They have a low tax base and they need a real infrastructure projects, which I've been able to help them get. So I'm very proud of that. I spent a lot of time with those folks because they really need, more intervention, I think, than kind of, some of the other areas that I represent. So the Senate district does still have Belglade and South Bay. All the agricultural lands are in the Senate district and the House district, so I've learned a lot about agriculture. It's really been, fascinating, and I'm very proud to represent this area. So let me just kind of dive right into, why me. I think I've mentioned a little bit already because of my experience during this crisis. But I think the most important thing, and I've said a few times, democratic values. We are in the minority in Tallahassee of all the branches. I mean, obviously the governor. The governor has now stacked the Florida Supreme Court. So where the court used to stop some bad legislation, that may not be the case anymore. And it's looking like it is not, because he's put 3 people on the bench and was able to change the majority of the bench to be more conservative. So we don't have that stopgap anymore. The Florida House and the Florida Senate are both controlled by Republicans. So we are in the minority. The Senate has a better ratio. There are 17 out of 40 Democrats. The House has only 47 out of 120. So it's definitely more difficult in the House. In the Senate, in this upcoming election, there are 2 seats that they're looking to flip. And anything could happen with others, but really realistically, we're looking at a potential for 19 versus 21. That's huge, because if you just get one person to kind of come to your side on a vote, that can make all the difference in the world. And it can make a big difference in committee votes and keeping bad legislation from getting passed. The Senate has also traditionally been more moderate, and has stopped some bad legislation that the House has proposed. So I think it would be a great fit for me to be able to be in the Senate and to work in a more bipartisan manner and to be able to moderate things a little bit up in Tallahassee. And so the reason I bring up the minority caucus is because when you're in the minority, all you have is your unified voice. And if the Republicans are able to pick off individual members for whatever reason, sometimes it's an ideological reason like charter schools, or voucher schools, I should say, abortion issues. Sometimes it's just because a Democrat may want a bill or an appropriation done and they've been made a promise by the Republicans. And unfortunately, my opponent, I believe, has done that. And the biggest offense to me is in 2002, he voted for the Republican redistricting plan. That means every 10 years, a plan is presented with maps, and you all know what gerrymandering is, and they gerrymander the districts so that they can stay in power. And if you think about Florida, we all know how close every election is in Florida. Florida is absolutely purple, but thankfully it's supposedly trending blue. But why is it a ratio of 47 to 73 in the Florida House? It doesn't make sense. If you think it's a purple state, it should be 50-50 or really close. It's because of the way the districts are drawn. Palm Beach is a perfect example. There are 2 representatives who are Republican, and those have been Republican seats and probably will remain so for a while. They chopped up Palm Beach County, and there's a very thin sliver that runs along the coast. For whatever reason, people on the coast are less democratic, and so it runs east along the coast all the way up from Boca to Singer Island, and that is a Republican seat. The other Republican seat is Palm Beach Gardens, Jupiter, and Acreage, like that whole area. And so for whatever reason, the way they've carved it up, is able to create a couple of Republicans in a very blue county. So it's really important that the Democrats stick together to work on our values and make our voice heard and be unified. And if individuals vote for the Republican redistricting plan and Democrats vote, they make it bipartisan, and then we have no chance of getting the kind of package that we want. And so I believe that is really the most important difference between us. I will never do that. I was a very strong member of our minority caucus. I tried to work to keep us together when there was fracture, which there are sometimes. We're very strong personalities. And the Democratic Party is pretty diverse, and so it's not always that easy. But I'm a mediator. I try to use my negotiation skills, my compromise skills to be able to keep us together and keep us unified. And it's really important to me that that's what we do. And the current sitting senators, there are 17 Democrats, as I said. One chose not to endorse anyone for his own reasons. So 16 Democratic senators have all endorsed me. They've looked at our records and they believe that I will be a strong, loyal member of the caucus. And I think that's the most important thing you look for when you're electing a Democratic senator. I've talked a lot. I'll stop now.
Okay, Tina, I appreciate all the background that you gave us. And I just wanted to ask you about the TV ads that we've been seeing. So you mentioned that Irv, you say, voted for Republican redistricting. And I know there's other things in the ad that tend to say that he used to be a Republican or he votes Republican. Was he ever a Republican? As far as you know, did he ever vote Republican other than in the redistricting vote?
Yes, he definitely was a Republican. If you watched the debate last night, and I can send anyone the link, I'll put it in the chat. It was WPBF, our ABC affiliate. WPBF.com has the debate right there. It's recorded. He admitted in the debate, he's admitted in many of these kinds of forums that we've had, that he says, I was a Republican 25 years ago. Who cares? I saw the light. So he was a Republican. Is it bad that he changed? It's great that he changed. I'd rather he be a Democrat than a Republican, but it's the fact. So he hasn't denied that. And I think in a Democratic primary, things like that matter. So the votes, there were about 4 that we have highlighted in some of the mailers and the TV ads that we felt were very important. There could be more, obviously, but this is his 3rd Senate run. He's lost the other 2. A lot of this was brought up in prior elections, and so people did that research, and it was right there. There was as I said, I believe the most egregious is the Republican redistricting plan, because that kept the Republicans in power for 10 more years. And this redistricting is coming up again in 2 years. So this state senator will vote on that. So nothing could be more important or current than that particular vote. It's a little convoluted, so bear with me for a second. A Democratic member put forth a repeal of Stand Your Ground. So it's like a double negative, right? So Stand Your Ground is the law. It's a very bad law, in my opinion, where people feel that they can use violence in, self-defense. Self-defense is still available in the criminal justice system, so you don't need an additional law to justify shooting potentially unarmed people, which is what happened like to Trayvon Martin. And he voted against the repeal. That means that he voted for Stand Your Ground. And so that's a vote that we have highlighted because I think it's a very bad vote. He voted for the voucher school system, which again, I don't believe in. I believe that our taxpayer money should go to public schools. Public schools are underfunded. Teachers are still not paid enough, even with the raises. The veteran teachers have not been given equivalent raises. There's a lot more we need to do for our public schools. And I don't think taxpayer money should be going to voucher schools, where many of them are religious schools, and many of them unfortunately have discrimination policies that are allowed in those schools. And I think if you're getting taxpayer money, they shouldn't be. That was something we debated on the floor the last 2 years. And I personally fought against that. And we tried to put amendments on to disallow the discrimination policies. We're saying, okay, if you want to discriminate, you're a Catholic school, for example, you think that, LGBTQ students should not be allowed in your school, then stay private, do not take taxpayer money. But if you're taking taxpayer monies, you have to abide by our laws. And they would not put the amendment on. This is the kind of stuff that we deal with in Tallahassee.
Are you worried about getting sued by Irv?
Am I worried about getting sued? Not at all.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
Tell me what your thoughts are on the agricultural reserve in Palm Beach County, and if there's anything that you've ever done to try to protect it, or if you get elected, what would you do to protect it?
Well, I'm not trying to buck the issue, but it is more of a county commission. It's a development issue. It really doesn't have much to do with the state. So I haven't had an opportunity to vote on anything or, create any policy. But as someone who lives in West Boca and, who represents the area and go all the time up and down and, loves to frequent Bednar's and all the other areas in the Ag Reserve, I think it needs to be protected to the extent that people want to stay, want to keep their farms, and we should keep that. But it's changing, I mean, if people can't run them anymore and there's a proper plan for development, I can't say I'm anti-development either, because, we need housing, we need some commerce. So it's a very, it's an important balance that I think the county commissioners have to strike. And luckily, it's not something that I get to vote on because it's a tough one.
Just to help you out here, as an environmental attorney who's filed litigation against developers, the state legislature and state senate makes laws that determine whether we're going to win or lose a lawsuit. Right now, if we file a lawsuit to try to protect the agricultural land, the laws are set up so it's almost impossible. And if we lose, we have to pay all of the developers' costs and attorney's fees, and we go broke. It's impossible to challenge anything. So when you say compromise, we've compromised. Development here, development there, development here. Farmland's incompatible with development. It'll disappear. It's not going to compromise. It'll disappear completely within maybe 5, 6, 7, 10 years, unless we do something. And we're hoping, the environmentalists, that the state legislature will determine that there is something they can do, and they're morally required to do it. And we hope that you'll get involved in that fight, because I got my son Ari here, and by the time he's my age, I hope he'll be able to buy fresh fruit and vegetables here without having to get them from some other country, and who knows what chemicals they put in it. Wanted to ask you something else.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think there's some really thriving businesses though. Like I've spoken to Pero Farms and they do a great job. I went to visit Green Life. That's an incredible new kind of high-tech hydroponics, and they make great lettuce. You can buy it. It's in this beautiful little environmentally friendly box,
Yeah.
and it's delicious. These tiny little romaine. So there's some great innovation things happening, and I think, you know, those Bednar's is always crowded. I think, you know, as long as they continue growing and doing well, that, you know,
Just so
I
you
think the
know,
problem is when they want to sell their land. I think that's the problem. Like
that's
Thomas
not a
on the
problem.
corner.
Bednar's will be extinct at the current rate of development. You can't have farmland next to development. You have to have a bunch of farmland together to make it economically viable. And they do not have the right to sell to a non-farmer. If I want to sell my house, I can't say, you know what, I think I'm going to move. I'm going to sell that to a factory. There's something called zoning.
Well,
And
yeah,
if my
sure.
land is zoned residential, I can't just say, you know what, I can't make a go of it living here. I'm going to sell it to a factory. No, the county says, no, you can't do that. The same thing's true with agricultural land. If agricultural land is zoned agricultural and they don't want to farm anymore, they can sell it to another farmer. They don't have to sell to a developer. Let me ask you something else. What is it that the state can do about climate change? And what do you think that we can do as a state to help fight against climate change?
So I think we're making the tiniest bits of tiniest strides. I'm not one to give our governor too much credit, but at least we are using the word climate change now, which I think was not allowed under the prior administration. So that's a step in the right direction. I know that there was a bill this past year where a climate change study has to be done if there's a government building, I believe, that's being built. So there are, you know, the tiniest strides, not enough, clearly. So, you know, I personally have, well, I know that there's been many bills that don't get heard. I personally tried to put a resolution forward, a simple resolution. So you only get 6 bill slots as a state rep. You can do resolutions, which are pretty meaningless, but they're supposed to be, they're not bills, they're just supposed to have some cultural significance, if you will. And for this group, you might appreciate there's like, you know, Jewish Appreciation Day or Jewish History Day, something along those lines. So I tried in my first year to do a resolution, making like Earth Day, Reduce, Reuse, Recycle Day. Just because you should see the crap that's up in, you know, Barry, what's up in Tallahassee and what they give us to eat in and everything. And they came back to me and said, the word recycle is too political. So a resolution can't be political, okay? So that's kind of what we're dealing with. I was just on such a micro level as an individual, I'm really obsessed with recycling and reusing and being careful. I drive a hybrid for years and years and years. And I've been going after the sergeant at arms is the person who kind of does our meal service and everything. We have styrofoam cups. And I told them about this great business, agriculture, in the Glades called Tellus, which makes their own biodegradable plates made from sugar cane, the refuse. And they're, you know, you've probably seen some of those ones that like some of the hippier restaurants give you, like they're cardboard looking brown. And I said, let's order these instead of styrofoam. And I constantly am on him. Well, it hadn't happened yet. I think they switched to maybe paper instead of plastic for plates, but just a small point. But there's so many people in that building, and in the general cafeterias and our cafeterias, this is what they're giving. So I tried to do things on that micro level. And
well, Tina, I appreciate your efforts, and the Social Action Committee of Va-Dor will be glad to help you try to make that happen.
Absolutely.
So thank you for what you're doing.
So, but there is a lot more legislation. I mean, for example, Senator Rader had, you know, like, you know, up north, the recycling, the 5-cent return bottle, they don't want to hear it. The plastic bag thing is, you know, I did a lot of research into what bills should I put forward. And believe me, I really thought about environmental bills and what I could do. And, you know, you look into it and you say, well, for the last 10 years, they've said no, or someone else is proposing that. The plastic bag ban, for example, they, excuse me, they, you know, refuse to do it. They just absolutely refuse. So you're banging your head against the wall. It's not to say we don't keep trying.
When you say they refuse to do it, what do you mean? They wouldn't bring the bill up for a vote?
Hear the bill on a plastic.
Right.
ban, or not a ban, but like, in Massachusetts, you have to pay 5 cents or 10 cents for a bag. They won't change anything. They only believe in preemption when it suits them. When it's environmental preemption, they don't believe in it.
Well, next year we might have something different, because I think there might be a different tide moving in as far as the government's concerned. Just one other question for you, then I'll open it up to everybody else. Tell me, what is it that you think we can do to try to bring people together? Because there's just such polarity and viciousness and hatred between the parties, even within a family, even fellow Jews getting angry at other Jews. What is it that you think we can do to help bring people together? And also, one other thing, if Irv decides that he would like to reschedule before the primary, not afterwards, but if he decides to schedule before another debate, would you allow him to do that, or do you think that we should let Irv swerve and avoid the debate?
Let's just talk about it when the time comes and we see the calendar. The early voting starts on Monday in Palm Beach County.
Yeah, right.
And so, I'm going to be at the polls all day, and
all right.
It's pretty hard to schedule things. I just don't know where I'm going to be.
Okay.
So let's just see if he does, and if he comes up with a date, and if we can, we'll try.
Okay.
Obviously, not afraid to, debate him.
What about my other question? What can we do to bring people together?
So, one thing, speaking of Jews and what's going on now, I never saw division in the Jewish community like this before, and it really upsets me. And I called up, as I said, a fire was lit in me when Trump was running, and then, worst day of my life probably when he won. Well, I shouldn't say that, but anyway, a bad day. And I was so upset by the way our fellow Jews were acting about Trump or the anti-Hillary. I said, I don't understand. Why do they think he's bad for Israel or bad for the Jews? And I felt like there's all this, I'll call it Republican pandering, that I think is going on to the Jewish community. I just don't buy it. And I actually have a friend from law school who worked for Hillary when she was Secretary of State. And I asked him, and he gave me all kinds of information about how Hillary is not anti-Israel, and Obama wasn't either, and it's all this false information. And so I would love to see our Jewish community come together. That would make a big, big statement. I think the cure is January 21st, 2021. It's just getting a new president in.
Do you get a lot of hate mail?
What's that?
Do you get a lot of hate mail from right-wing Republicans and from Republican Jews, from right-wing Jews? Do you get a lot of hate mail?
I wouldn't say hate mail. I get a lot of hate mail, I won't wear a mask, get rid of this, get rid of that. I did go into an uncomfortable situation at an Orthodox temple. I won't name where it is, but in the district. And I just went because, I'm not afraid, and they're my constituents, and I was happy to meet with them. But they are upset at the media, and, they paint Orthodox Jews a certain way. And, what do I do against that? Why don't I speak up? And, they always use the example of a couple of congresswomen who are vocal, and they're anti-Semites, and you need to speak out against them. I said, that's not my role as your state representative. My role is to represent you in Tallahassee. I'm not here to speak out on behalf of all Jews or behalf of all, representatives. But if I see anti-Semitism on any side, I will call it out. So, it's a really tough, fine line, and I can't stand, they do it to Lois Frankel, they do it to Ted Deutsch. I mean, they're wonderful representatives for us. And just what I find with the other side that really bothers me is they find this one little thing where someone maybe says something wrong, and they just pound on it and never let you go and blame you for their behavior, when obviously we could point to a million things, a crazy right-winger says, and we don't hold everyone accountable for that. But I think the temperature of the nation is created by Donald Trump. It was not like that before. I never remember a time like this, and I'm 52 years old. So, I've been around the block a little bit, and as I said, I've never seen it with Jews. And I was just reading a statistic about there were not these kind of anti-Semitic incidents going on under the last administration. And there's permission to be vicious, and permission to be vile, and permission to be violent. And it has to start from the top. And so I think our governor doesn't help, but our president is really the one setting the tone. And so you know, this anti-media thing, I think that really hurts, and people buy into it. And, you know, it could also be the internet, which wasn't the same way in the early years of Obama. You know, we just all witnessed this fake news about hydrochloroquine, however you pronounce it, and all these people putting it out there, and the president supporting it. And it's just, there's so much out there that is dangerous information that people seize upon and create division. I mean, how could masks be political? It's to save all of us and our health, and yet everything becomes that way. So I really think that it's going to be tough until the election. And I just think the demeanor of Joe Biden, and hopefully he wins, and just being able to take the temperature down and calm people. And, you know, if we win the other chambers, then there's not going to be as much division. We're just going to get some good laws passed and done, and hopefully things will calm down. I think hopefully things are cyclical, and this is just a really bad, ugly cycle we're in.
So you think Trump is responsible for mask confusion?
100%.
All right, let's open it up to questions. Anybody else have any questions for Tina Polsky? Sharon, take it away. Who else wants to ask a question?
You can unmute yourself if you have a question. I'm going to put it in gallery view so that we can see your hands. So if you have a question, just unmute yourself, raise your hand, and let's go for it. Go ahead, Deborah.
Okay, so thank you for everything, all the information you gave. I have a question. What my big concern, and I agree with you, I do hold Trump accountable for what the temperature is in this country. It's never been this bad. And I do feel the same way. I hope if we can get rid of him and all his cronies, because I'll tell you what, I hold the Senate, all his enablers, I hold them more responsible than him, because they could do something about it. So when we get rid of all of them, I do feel things will change. But my big concern is the election. Do you feel, I mean, everybody's like scared that, you know, there's going to be cheating. We've seen it before, and he's not doing anything to stop it. How do you feel about our local elections here? Do you feel confident that it will be okay, or what's your opinion? I know a lot of people are getting absentee ballots, so I'm just curious your opinion on that.
I do feel comfortable with our local elections. I've spoken with our supervisor many times, and I really think that this seat covers Broward and Palm Beach, so both supervisors, I really feel they're doing a very good job. So many people have asked for absentee ballots. So many people have filled them out. It's going to be unprecedented, the number. And I think the number of voters in this primary, look, an August primary with me in central Boca, I'm the top of the ticket. I mean, a state senator, that's not normally what happens. So a lot of people are not going to vote. Normally don't vote in a primary, but I think a lot of people will, because it's so easy. It comes to you and there it is. And sure, why not fill it out? So, you know, I think the ability to track it, my mom did it. I'm going to vote in person just because, you know, I have to be at the polls anyway, but my mom did it and I tracked it and it's received. It hasn't been verified yet, but it's there. And just to know that it's there is very comforting. So you can track your ballot. And I do believe that we are in really good hands. You know, even 2 years ago when we had some very close elections and there was recounting, I think everyone was okay with the results in Palm Beach County. I know that as a result, we lost our supervisor of elections, but I think a lot of that was political. We've gotten new machines since then. And I think that they're doing a good job. And I just think that there's been some election law changes since then. There's an ability to count votes longer. Like they're tabulating all those mail-in ballots now. Of course, we don't know the results, but they're given more leeway and more opportunity to take care of it and make sure and give you time. Like if you send in your ballot and they said, hey, your signature doesn't match, you have so much time to fix it. So the earlier you get in, the better if you're doing it that way. And I do feel comfortable in their ability locally.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Can I go? So do you know though, are they going to have as many polls open or are they going to have less? Have you heard anything about that? Like
yes. Yeah, there will be fewer, I think only on election day though. Okay. You know how there's so many and there's just not a lot of people of them. The ones that I think look like if a nursing home, individual community, in
And
like
the
individual
community.
communities, like for example, I know Venetian Isles in the district, for
Right.
example, they always had a polling place. I'm not sure, I think that they are open, but you know, I heard her say that there are a few that said that they don't want to because they
Right.
don't want outsiders. But that I think is just election day because those are so small. All your early voting sites, the libraries, the supervisor elections office will be open. If you'd like to vote in person, I think early voting is the way to go. We have 2
Yeah.
full weeks in Palm Beach County. It will be quiet. It will be easy. It's clean. I voted in person for the March presidential primary. Sanitizer, gloves, masks, plexiglass.
Yeah, I voted in person too. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
If we got an absentee ballot though, can we still go vote in person? That doesn't screw it on. Okay.
Nope. And don't bring it with you. Just go vote. If you,
Okay.
if you want, though, you can bring your absentee ballot to the polling location, but you can't do both. So I receive it just, you know, because,
Right.
and, but I'm going to vote in person.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you. I'm glad to hear that you have confidence because I'm kind of nervous about the general election.
Yeah, I do in us, you know, across the country, I don't know, but I feel good
Yeah.
about it.
My son Ari has a question he'd like to ask.
Sure. Hi, Ari.
Hello. I'm just curious what your opinion is on schools reopening in the fall.
So I have a lot of confidence in our school district. I know all the members of the Palm Beach County School District. I really value the way that they've analyzed it, and I'm with them. I agree with them that schools should not open August 10th as scheduled. They moved it to August 31st, but then August 31st starts the virtual. I think it's wise until our numbers really start going down.
Thanks. Anybody else? Other questions? All right, I think we're, oh, go ahead, Sharon.
I just want to thank Tina for being with us and taking the time. This is the second time that Tina's been with us. She was with us a week ago last Tuesday. And I thank her. I wish her good luck in the primary. And I applaud her for everything she's done in Tallahassee and hope that she gets to be state senator.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the support.
Let me also thank Tina for being here. She has done a great job for us, representing us in Tallahassee. And you can learn a lot by who shows up and who doesn't show up. Who wants to talk to us, who wants to answer our questions, who wants to share with us, and who would rather talk through a TV app. And so we appreciate her being here. I think it was John Lewis who said you have to rise up, you have to stand up, you have to speak up, and you also have to show up. And Tina, we thank you for showing up with us and for standing up and speaking up for us in Tallahassee. Good luck to you.
Pleasure. Thank you
Take
for
care.
having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you, guys.
Bye.